Thank you, Michelle. So I work at the Ministry of Education, Culture and Science. And in 2020, we in the Netherlands launched a new, or rather a follow-up approach to tackling low literacy. And one of the measures we announced as part of this national follow-up approach is that we would set aside funds for experiments, because we believe experiments can be used to respond more quickly to the changing demands or needs of the target group. For instance, following up on developments that are part of the digital transition. And we would also hope that successful insights gained from these experiments can be quickly disseminated and scaled up, also during the term of our new approach, our new program, which runs from 2020 up until 2024. So today's presentation is about the first experiments that we funded, the so-called Count on Skills experiments. They are still ongoing, and I will give the floor in a minute to John Lake and Bob Bunnick to tell you more about them. John and Bob are both working at the Netherlands Institute for Sound and Vision, and John is the client and the strategic partner development manager, and Bob is the program manager. My colleague Aantink Jiep is also present today, so any questions you might have during or after the presentation may be directed at any four of us. But for now, please take it away, John and Bob.
I'll start sharing the screen there, John.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, welcome everybody. Good morning. My name is John Lake, as Monique already explained. We want to show you all a concrete example of an experiment that aims to help the transition to the digital world, and especially from the perspective of and focusing on people that have to deal with low digital skills. Okay, Bob, the next. First, some brief context for you to see the big picture, because we are operating with the project in a special context in the Netherlands. This is the special context for the Count on Skills experiment. And let me read this short citation. In the Netherlands, 2.5 million people have difficulties with reading and counting. They also find it hard to use a computer or smartphone. However, in order to participate in society, one does need these skills. That's why we call them basic skills. People with insufficient basic skills have more troubles in finding paid employment, more often face financial problems, and have to deal with health issues. Well, I presume that this situation is more or less the same in a lot of other countries where you're from, but this is the context in which we are operating. Okay, the next, please. Some important context is the institution from which we are running the project. We're working in the Netherlands Institute for Sound and Vision. We are one of the largest audiovisual media archives in Europe, with a large interactive museum, will be completely renewed in 2 years now. We are a national hub for media research, media literacy, and media education, running several national but also international programs. Well, and then in 2018-19, a movement started to grow, driven by governments as well as by some big private companies, tech companies, aiming on action in the domain of digital inclusion. Okay, Bob. This resulted on 11 March 2019 in the start of the National Alliance Digital Habitation, with its formal bureau in our institute. A key role in the forming of this alliance was played by Royal Highness Princess Laurentine of Orange. This organization, this alliance, well, on the picture you see some 200 representatives of government, public organizations, private organizations, scientists, experienced experts. Well, it's there are a lot of participants in this alliance, but this is the starting point for this this alliance, this movement on fighting digital exclusion, actually. So now we're going to the next slide. And now we're coming to the bridge to the experiment. Why do this experiment in this special context and with these organizations? Well, the experiment has a national focus. That's clear from the perspective and the goal and the purpose, as Monique already explained. There is a very special feature of the project is that we are also working on innovation of the process of doing the experiment. It's not only dealing with a technological innovation, but also process innovation and dealing and introducing the role of experienced experts upfront. Another aspect, another key feature is that we want to work with innovative application of technologies, new technologies, speech recognition, voice recognition, AI, etc., all existing but evolving technologies, and we want to implement those technologies or a selection of them in the experiments. We also are in this very special context dealing with public, but also with private partners in the public-private collaboration, and also with ministries and mutual public partners. So it's a very colorful mix of partners because, and why is this? Because this issue of digital exclusion is a big social issue that hits everyone in society. So you have to deal with everyone in society. And we also are used to work on very complex projects in our organization. So that's why we adopted this project. And now Bob, my colleague Bob, is taking you and leading you into the experiment. Okay, Bob, take the floor, please.
Yeah, thank you, John. Yeah, to start off with maybe the objectives and where this came from. The program started last year after summer, August, September. And Count on Skill, as said, was already a longer running multi-year program, really focused on the low literacy aspects in society. With a lot of support from the Ministry, also of Internal Affairs, and other ministries, there was also clearly a need to look at the digital side of things, because if you lack digital basic skills, it's really hard with a rapidly digitizing governments to participate, and also, as John already mentioned, in society. So the idea was to do experiments, quite an open objective actually, aimed at people with low digital skills, and it should result in two things. Insights, firstly, in how can we recognize or detect people with low digital skills if they go online, and secondly, if we can recognize them online, can't we give them better help, better support, so effectively get them to fulfill the task they want to do. And that sounds maybe very obvious, but you will see later that there's lots of hurdles for people with low digital skills to go online. And despite the enormous amount of support offers in the Dutch market society, it's not always clear how effective that is. And we really want to do it in the context of digital skills. So what are these experiments? Well, what we do is setting up with new technology experiments on 3 types of websites. The first group is, I'm not sure if you see my mouse pointer, but it's governmental implementation organizations, like for Social Security, your speeding tickets, and those type of organizations. The second group of websites we wanted to work with were municipalities in the Netherlands, and the Dutch Association of Municipalities helped us in approaching them. And the National Institute of Sound and Vision is located in Hilversum, the city of Hilversum, which also brands themselves as the media city. So clearly we have them on board. And thirdly, we want to work with private parties. We do that through the alliance John talked about, and we contacted a lot of them ourselves. On these 3 types of websites, we wanted to set up at least 3 sorts of experiments with innovative technology. And what innovative technology is was kind of an open ticket to us. So we could use what we wanted to use as long as it would lead to recognition and support. And again, the goals at the end, and this program runs till summer this year. We might prolong it a bit, but in principle until mid this year, is to see if we can learn how we can recognize people and how we can guide them. Secondly, can we formulate that into personas, clear profiles? And that's quite important actually, because we started with a lot of research talking to everybody in the Netherlands and in Europe almost who had written about low digital skills or digital literacy problems, professors, companies, publicists. And it was clear to me already there was not a very clear description of those people who are in that enormous group of people with lower digital skills. So that's important to learn that. Thirdly, it's about how do we communicate with that difficult to grasp group of people. And in terms of technology, what type of architecture would you need? What type of technology? And certainly it needs to be scalable and replicable and broadly applicable also into other companies, other websites. So we're not experimenting with point solutions or tailor-made solutions. We try to deploy technology which we can use later on in a much broader audience. What's important again is that this very diverse group of users on the left side at the end of the day has to go to a website. And some of the market parties told me, yeah, but you know, these people, they Google for my telephone number and then they pick up the phone. But we also believe that at the end of the day, everybody wants to go online because you want to look for information, you need to complete a form, you want to do something online. And so the finding place for our experiments is a website. That's very important to mention. And then the question is, how can you recognize people with lower skills once they go online? And we figured out after summer in the early phase that it had to do with behavior, you know, because you can't look somebody in the eyes when they go online, you can't look over their shoulder at that moment. So you have to see if you can detect the things they do online and if that could be an indication for the fact they have lower digital skills. It can be behavior, it can be the fact that they don't succeed, for example, to complete a form, but that should be the trigger. And once you recognize them, detected them, you can guide them on to support. And that support can be online, but can also be offline. For example, in the Netherlands, there's an enormous amount of support in libraries with volunteers to get you trained, to get you people who are willing to help you with online stuff, to give you certain types of training on certain skills. But again, the question is how effective that is if you don't know if it's about somebody's digital skills or maybe about his reading skills or the fact how mature they are in using technology at all, for example. So we want to bring those things together and offer solutions once we know that we can recognize somebody. And that's actually also the point where technology kicks in. So we figured out in the early phases again that artificial intelligence should be a very promising technology in many aspects. But in this case, we decided to work with a company called Primed. And what they do is on a website, they can put a tracker, they call it. And the tracker is almost like Google Analytics or a cookie. It recognizes that you go online without having to know your personal details. You can basically track any behavioral aspect. It can be the text you enter, how long you are on a website, whether you close it and go back in, the text you enter. It can be all kinds of such behavioral aspects. So you get a lot of data from that. And with that data analysis and this AI algorithm, you can then start learning if certain behavior belongs to certain people. Secondly, we decided to work together with Elastic, and Elastic is a digital design agency. So almost a kind of a digital, modern, very good website builder and analyst company. And why they are on board is if you put a tracker on the website, the AI algorithm also needs to know when it has been successful. So you want, once you think that you recognize somebody who is probably less digitally skilled, you want to give that person a feedback loop. And the feedback means you give him, for example, a pop-up, or you give him a new page, which is much more visually oriented, or you give him a support box, or you give him a pop-up with a phone number they can call. And if people use that, then the algorithm knows and sees that you fulfilled the task you went to do online. The algorithm learns by itself that that was a successful offering, and it will try to do it more often when it sees certain behavior. So you need somebody that can also help you in doing small website adaptations on the types of websites we wanted to work with. And we also said to ourselves, okay, but what is that type of behavior we need to detect, and who are those digitally lower skilled people? Because as said, despite all the literature and people writing about digital inclusion, there's not a very clear consensus in the market of how you could group those people or how to segment that target audience. In terms of offering support, we're also looking at much more technology in addition to AI at this very moment, like voice recognition, chatbots, dynamically adapting websites, but we only do it in combination with the recognition. So we are not building or designing new standalone support offers with interesting technology. We try to do it in combination with, we recognize somebody and then we offer that person a more bespoke solution. Again, could even be offline, but the idea is to do that in relation to the recognition. And clearly we learned that having good experiment and technology partners are really important to us. And also that the ethical aspects, you don't want to stigmatize people. You don't want to show them in the face, oh, dear John or Monique, it seems you're not very handy online, so maybe you need some help. You don't want to do that type of stuff. You want to do it very subtle. And the nice thing is that with AI, for example, you can do that because it's basically technology under the hood there. And people don't have to be confronted with the fact that they're not so good in doing these tasks. Privacy with GDPR, of course, extremely important. We addressed that separately with GDPR experts, written some guidelines on how to deal with personalized data in the context of these experiments. And that's not for today, I would say, but the point is that it's really important to do that early on in this process. Yeah, and then the website owners, we talked to, well, tens, hundreds of companies, government bodies to convince them to participate in this. And I'll talk about it later in a minute, but it's also important that at the end of the day, a lot of people are interested in this topic. It's a very hot topic at the moment, digital inclusion. But the fact that they give you room to do something on their website, of course, is very often business driven by their business decision and by their business priorities. Yeah, we simply have to compete with that. They can only spend their IT euro once. And it's also about if they do this, they maybe need to postpone something else. That discussion is quite important to manage. Okay, then user behavior. As said, that's the key for recognition. It's nice that you can have a smart algorithm, but it needs to detect something. So we asked a company called Standby from Amsterdam, to a very good research design company, to help us in grouping that target audience, making a more clearer description of who these people could be and how to segment them. And secondly, how you could recognize them. And we came to a set of these 5 big colorful circles. And you can see there are aspects about literacy, the means they have, so technology they have at hand, and the level of education, the financial situation. Do they have help resources at hand to help them if they can't complete the task? And all of those aspects are mixed among each other and are part of people who are less skilled. And we decided with Standby to do a qualitative research in really, despite the Corona crisis, to go out and talk to these people in various group settings. And they recruited those people for interviews and looking at their behavior in 3 large groups. So we didn't dive deeper into those circles, but we decided to take 3 large combined groups. Here described as elderly people with less digital skills, people with language problems, so to say, and vulnerable families in living in poverty. And with these 3 big groups, we were able to capture basically everybody involved or everybody who could potentially have issues with digital skills. And then they organized sessions where they firstly asked people in one-on-one and group interviews, okay, how do you go online? Where do you go to? What problems do you face? What are the blockages you have to deal with? And secondly, they asked people to show it to them. So they looked and filmed over their shoulder to just analyze and see the problems people face. And with that, we got very clear sets of behavioral characteristics, which belong to this group of people who are less digitally skilled. And what's I think extremely interesting, we did it in 3 phases. How people go on a web page, what do they do when they are online, and what do they do when they want to leave a certain web page. And you get all kinds of observations and preferences, which we then further analyzed and grouped into generic characteristics and very specific characteristics for the certain target audiences. And I'm not going to read them out, but to give you a few flavors, a lot of people with low digital skills also really prefer, for example, the mobile phone, because that's deemed to be simpler, or the passwords are automatically stored on the website. They often find it difficult to recognize buttons. What is a button? What is a picture? What is a pop-up? You see problems in general with the digital language we still use a lot online. People also face a lot of layering and steps to do when they go online. When they want to leave or complete a task, or they cannot complete a task and get stuck somewhere, they very often close the browser, go back in, start all over again, try it again. If it doesn't succeed, close it again. So there's also, I said, a lot of frustration often on the table because they have all kinds of problems. And then with these learnings from the research we did, and this was in November through early January this year, we grouped those into, again, the characteristics. And with the first website owner on board, the municipality of Hilversum, we said, okay, can we turn this now into a live experiment? Because it was time, of course, to start doing this instead of just talking about it. And what we learned along the way is that going from general interest to how do we get somebody to participate, it goes often in a number of stages, and I want to quickly talk you through that. First of all, getting interest is not that difficult. So a lot of companies work on accessibility, but the whole thing to remember as well is this is not about accessibility in terms of people with visual issues or hearing issues, but this is about getting a much wider audience being able to participate online. So again, the interest of digital inclusion is really big. Then the first question always is, what does it mean? How many hours does it take from me, the IT department, the webmaster? And actually, that's quite small, the impact. It's only a few hours in meetings, and the technology is quite readily available, and we have the team to help implement. Then you often go into privacy and ethical discussions. Is it clear enough? What do we need to do to comply? Are we allowed to do this? Isn't this against GDPR rules, etc.? Often the next stage is, okay, interesting. What are the benefits for me, the website owner? Whether it's a private party, whether it's an execution body, you always get into this discussion about how does this translate into clear benefits. And besides generic benefits that people can participate, and this is not about a few percent of population, but this is about 10-15% of people visiting or wanting to visit your website. So there's much more scale out there than people are aware of. Then we go into selection. So we don't need to do these AI technology on the whole website. We really prefer to do it smaller on a certain product page, a certain form, a certain service you offer to your audience. Once we have that on the table, we need to talk technical discussion with web people, with vendors, what's the website owners technology they have under the hood. Luckily, there's quite a lot of generic technology out there, so it's not that difficult to implement the trackers and get the AI system to start working. And then, then the proof of the pudding is in the eating, as they say in the UK. Are they really going to do it? And that's not always the case. I've been through these stages with various website owners to the point that we thought, okay, now it's going to happen. We're going to implement. And then, we just couldn't get it done because they couldn't get priority internally, or there were cost-saving programs going on, or they first wanted to redesign their website. So, it's really a process of learnings and getting the right messages across in these various stages. And to wrap it up, where we are today is that we are now in the middle of starting this experiments with AI on the website of the municipality of Hilversum. That's really cool. This week we got good news. We have a next one on board, another website. So we will also start deploying technology there. Yeah, and the learnings at this very moment, so it means that once the technology starts working, we are collecting data, and towards this summer of this year, we will have much more outcomes, the desired insight in communication and types of people. But so far, we learned a lot from the process and the business benefits and how to prioritize. We learned a lot about the privacy and ethical aspects. And obviously, although this project is about, can you apply technology to help people better? It's a lot about, can you describe meaningful use cases for website owners? Can you help people? So the focus for the coming months really is on getting more experiments started with AI. And in parallel, we started investigating more technologies in addition or to complement AI to get the support offering better or more modern or more tailored towards people. Again, you should think about voice recognition, smart websites, conversational chatbots, people that help people that are not that good in finishing tasks online, and not only recognizing them, but again, also providing them with a much more fitting support offer. Yeah, that's basically the end of the presentation. And I think we forgot to say, I think I'll stop sharing my screen for now. The idea is that feel free to shoot questions, or maybe Monique, you already saw questions popping up in the meantime. Is there anything people want to understand better at the moment?
I see Evangelia put her hand up.
Hi.
Please go ahead.
I can't find the hand as well, so my digital skills are very basic as well, I guess. It's a very interesting presentation and initiative. What I would like to clarify, perhaps it was mentioned and I lost it at the beginning, is that these experiments take place in an anonymized way to protect people's personal data. So the main aim of the whole procedure is to get a clear picture of your population's status concerning its digital skills, and then use it to implement a policy to cure perhaps things you find, because it works in a way that you can only detect perhaps the target groups and the kind of difficulties people face. And then another stage would be finding these people, this kind of people that you detect that suffer from digital lack of skills, and then having a second procedure of helping them. Is that clear?
Yeah, I think it's clear, and it's a very good question, of course, because I mean, at the start, the objective was clearly to see if you can learn who those people are, how they behave, how to communicate with them. Right? That's one aspect of it. In terms of executing the experiments now, we learn about what technologies work and what don't to recognize and help those people better. And actually, we think that by helping them better, they will also develop more skills themselves, and that will boost their confidence, etc., etc. But the objective clearly is and was to, in an online web environment, see if you can recognize them and help them better with a promising technology, so to say. In terms of the first point you also made about privacy, we collect online behavioral data, and we don't collect personal data. That's more or less my explanation of it. I have to say, with the GDPR experts we hired to help us write some guidelines about this and how to do and what not to do, at the end of the day, collecting behavioral data of somebody who goes online is still classified as being personal data. But in the context of this, because it says something about your person, and you use it with AI to make an automated decision for somebody. And that combination makes that, according to GDPR, this is still personal data, but you don't have to ask for upfront consensus, approval. And so you can do this, but the advice is to be transparent on your website, adopt your privacy policy, and be clear that you use this type of technology. And that's quite interesting talking to website owners. And very often they say, difficult, privacy sensitive, and then we simply ask, do you use Google Analytics? And everybody says, yes, we use that to see how long people are online, if they complete a form, etc. So it's not that different from that.
For instance, in the specific websites that take part in the experiment, there is a special, let's say, information when you enter that this is like part of an experiment, and
no, we don't do that. No, that would be too much.
People don't know, actually don't know that this website is part of an experiment of this type.
No, if they want to, they can see it in the privacy statement you have to have on a website. And
Okay.
so that's what all the website people who participate, they adopt the privacy statement to be transparent and clear that we do this and what we collect. And that's basically the specifics of what we do. I think what's interesting here in terms of the ethics of these experiments is that we don't try to be in somebody's face, you know. So if we think that Monique goes online and she's very efficient in finding her way, then we don't have to offer her help, for example. If I would have less digital skills and I get stuck somewhere and the algorithm thinks, oh, Bob needs some help, it can, in a very subtle way, help me without having to tell me that I'm not that good online, you know, because, for example, it could provide me with a web page that's much better instruction video or a spoken voice, or instead of having to do 20 clicks to find a certain product, it could simply ask me, you know, what are you looking for? Or it could read out some text, for example. So there's many ways we can detect and help. And that's much less confronting to these people who already have a lot of frustration when they go online. Yeah, so again, the beauty is, I think, that you can do this under the hood, as I said, not in somebody's face. And you can be very specific. So you don't have to give everybody a solution, or you don't have to bother everybody with videos instead of text, but only the people who you probably feel are in need of support.
So to sum it up, within the experiment, people who do not do well get automatic help to resolve the issues. It's not a training, but it's a facilitating procedure.
Exactly.
Okay,
yeah, and it's self-learning. That's the beauty of AI. You can make it self-learning. So the more often that works, the more often it will start offering help for certain types of behavior. Yeah, so that's really nice.
Thank you very much.
I cannot see the hands.
Yeah, Monique, I would have a follow-up question to that. I mean, it sounds absolutely, you know, brilliant as a solution. But how exactly does it work? Would you have to ask all the giant manufacturers then to build in these pop-ups or these aids? In, you know, if I'm using, say, Chrome, would it be my Chrome that would help, that would provide this backup, or if I was using some other system, or is this, will this be only in the sort of educational setting where your educational platform will provide this? But if the person is out there in, you know, on their own, on the world wide web, that those aids won't be there, I presume.
No, without me being actually a complete IT expert, but I'm technical enough to explain it. The beauty is it sits basically in the website of the persons who want to offer this, let's say, intelligence or this way of supporting people with less digital skills. And what you implement, these what I call the trackers, is just a very small piece of software that you can put on any website, basically. It doesn't have to be modern, it doesn't have to be very specific. So it's not in the browser where you Google for, or you search for certain information. If you go to the website, for example, of a certain ministry or a commercial party, or the website of the city of Hilversum, which you saw, in that website, you put this simple script that tracks your information literally, and you can also put it just in one page or one form, and that's what we are doing at this very moment. So we don't put it at the front door of a complete website. You can, if you choose to, you can do that, but we do it on a certain service or certain product. So in this case, we put it on the website of the city of Hilversum, It's the page where people can go to if they want to make kind of a notification that somebody is needs to be fixed in the public space, like a light pole is defect or something else is going on that specific page, which actually has most traffic on the website of the city. Only on that page, we implement this tracker. So people who go there, and it's basically everybody who comes to the page, not just people who are less skilled, but everybody will be followed their behavior by this implementation, by this small piece of software. So the software will capture how you behave. And if the algorithm then thinks, this person is taking longer, or it shuts down the page, comes back, shuts down, come back, it might think, okay, this person needs help. And only then we provide an alternative. And we are designing now with the city of Hilversum those small web changes. So only those persons who we suspect they can need more help will get an alternative offer or simpler language on the web page or things I already mentioned. So it's generic and it's very small implementation. But what scares off people and companies in more particular is that, they need to do this small change to the website. And that's where you have to fight, what I called before, you have to fight for priority. Because there's also a product owner for that web page that said, that's nice, you want to implement this, but I also need the IT resources to launch my new product on that same web page, for example. You can also do this with Amazon or any website. So again, that's where the business priority kicks in. But in itself, it's a very small implementation.
Thank you. Yeah. Because yesterday we heard, from the French colleagues that they were they're not thinking. By 2022, they're going to put all public services online, and there'll be no more sort of paper filling in your tax forms and all of that. So in fact, one of these little tracker mechanisms in this new system would be quite a big step forward if such were acceptable.
That's why I think it's so brilliant that in the interdepartmental cooperation between the ministry where Monique works and Antink works, I think it's actually 3 or 4 ministries who cooperate together, that they decided, okay, we work on literacy as such, language skills, but we need to take care of the digital inclusion side of things. And that's basically where this idea came from, and which we picked up last year.
I see that Veronique is also raising her hand.
Yes, thank you, Monique. It's just also related to what Martina just said, because you present that kind of pilot project, and it's with those follow up on certain websites, like if people have difficulties to reach the information they are looking for. But do you count on that for people to realize that they need to upskills or their digital skills, like to go into some training regarding those skills, like because if they go on those websites, they will have help. If they go on other websites that not using that technology, they will probably face some difficulties to find out what they are looking for. So do you really count on that, like in a national level, to say, like, people say, okay, I will probably need some help, some training in digital skills? Is that what is behind all this, or what is, yeah.
No, I think that could be a fantastic follow-up, but as I said in the beginning of the presentation, it's not our first objective. We first want to see which technologies could help us detect people and help them. So the help offering is certainly part of the scope. And again, knowing that there already is quite a rich and very fragmented, to be honest, number of help offerings out there. So on the one hand, with this, you help people and you make them more confident, and I think that raises their skills to a certain extent, but it will not be enough. Secondly, because I think we also, as John said at the introduction, we are part of the Alliance. There they do much more on a national level, work on support offering, social inclusion, digital inclusion. And that for us, I think, is an important stepping stone into support in the future. But it's not our first objective, but I think it's quite possible. It should be possible, I think, for us to bridge that into the Alliance and other, we talked to a number of those large national initiatives who are there to help elderly people or people with lower literacy or younger people or people who live in poverty. There's quite a lot of national initiatives. Again, when we spoke to a lot of them in the early phase of this program. And I think that should be part of the, most likely the recommendation at the end, to see how we can link into that. Yeah. John, feel free to add if you want to, but
yeah, well, I want something to add on what Veronique asked. It was a very interesting question because, like Bob explained, the whole experiment is based on anonymity. Yeah, I mean, we don't want to stigmatize people, of course, and we may not do that, of course. But so on the other hand, if we were let's say, more explicitly want to do something with the recognition of the skills of people that we are able to do with the technology, then we could, of course, offer them specific help or specific courses or specific training or whatsoever. But it's a very it could be a very interesting, let's say, extension of the project. But we're always have to do and to deal with this anonymity and GDPR recognition, of course. Regulation. So this will always be the case, but it gives extremely good opportunities to do something with this. And it's actually the same way of working that commercial parties, of course, are recognizing their online behavior of their customers, and it's the holy grail for them to to walk in the knee holes of their customers to offer them things that, but we don't want to bother our users, of course. We want to be very hesitant in to be explicitly and upfront offering all sorts of things. Well, that's the ethical part of the whole experiment, of course. So hope you understand that.
And maybe
yes,
to,
yes.
I'm sorry.
No, that's right. Sorry. Yeah, it's more like a self-assessment that you want to reach. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
And maybe to conclude before we continue into the coffee break, I think these experiments really tie in with one of the main ambitions of our national program, to reach more people who have difficulty with basic skills. And I think the internet is a really interesting and new finding place for us. So we're looking forward to continuing with the experiments and see where they go. And thank you, Bob and John.